Hey, this is Bradley with Semantic Links, and in this video, we're going to be talking about the second component of the full SEO audit service from Semantic Links, and that is the on-page optimization analysis for the self-hosted site, or the site that's connected to the Google Business Profile as the website, which has an enormous influence on how the GBP performs. And it's very interesting, but my own local SEO agency, I work with tree service contractors. I've been working with them for about 12 years now, and for a period of a number of years there, it was easier. It's actually easier to rank a Google Business Profile that is not connected to a website than it is to rank a GBP that is connected to a website that is optimized poorly or over-optimized. Okay, and it's odd because there was a period of time there where that didn't matter so much. You could have a really terrible, because I work with the tree service industry, there's a lot of really bad sites out there, and yet the GBPs would still rank really well. But now, actually, when I see a really bad site connected to a GBP, if just removing the site so that there's no website attached to it will almost always help the GBP to perform better. So I know there's an actual connection, a significant connection between how the GBP performs and how when it's linked to a website. And so the second most important thing in local search then, in my opinion, is site efficiency. Enter the helpful content update. It's now, at the time of this recording, it's in January of 2026, and the helpful content update from Google came out over 3 years ago. And it's had a number of refreshes over the years as well. But one of the things that Google one of the reasons for the helpful content update was because of Google's, resources are stretched thin especially because of AI and the, language models and the explosion of AI content on the web. Because of AI makes it so easy to produce content, Google has had to figure out ways to reduce the resources required, or that it, that it allocates to each website when it comes to crawl a site. And so the helpful content update was a way for Google to basically punish or demote sites that have excessive crawl resistance or use more of Google's resources than necessary. So what are things that would create this crawl resistance? Well, obviously things like technical SEO errors. So having a ton of internal redirects or internal links that are broken to go to 404 pages, or pages that are in the index, or the sitemap for crawling and indexing, yet are marked as no index, right? That's forcing a conflicting statement. Having a bunch of pages on the site that are canonicalized to another one because it's telling Google to index the page that is canonicalized to. So why waste crawl budget on pages that you're telling Google not to index, right? Redundancy, duplication, over-optimization, anything at all that causes more resources to be used than necessary to crawl and understand the site lowers the overall site quality score, which then affects the performance of that campaign. And that site quality score multiplier is applied to every page on the site. It used to be years ago where Google would treat individual web pages. Remember, Google doesn't rank websites in search queries. It ranks web pages in search queries, right? So it used to be that we could, even if a domain was poorly optimized, so a website was poorly over-optimized or even potentially over-optimized, as long as there wasn't an algorithmic or manual penalty applied against the domain, if there was a page or a few pages on the site that were optimized really well, those pages could still perform very well in search, even if the rest of the site was done poorly or over-optimized or whatever. Again, as long as there wasn't an algorithmic or manual penalty applied against the domain, that particular page could still, or whatever pages were optimized well, could still perform well. That's not really the case anymore, because Google looks at individual pages of a website as a smaller part of a larger whole. Because of the helpful content update, it's really categorizing, crawling the entire site and classifying it and providing, creating or assigning a quality score, a site quality score to it that then becomes a multiplier that is applied to every page on the site, so that if the site is poorly optimized or has excessive crawl resistance, technical SEO errors, redundancy, over-optimization, etc., that's actually going to lower the performance of any of the pages on the site that are optimized properly or correctly or whatever, if that's clear. So it's really important to understand how to optimize in today's search environment, and site efficiency is, in my opinion, the most important thing. So how do we achieve site efficiency? Well, number one is we stop optimizing for keywords and we optimize for entities. It is no longer a keyword-based algorithm. It has not been for several years. And so let me explain what I mean. I talk about in my audit process all the time about, we should be optimizing for local campaigns, optimizing for categories and topics, which you'll see in this section of the audit document, where I talk about, I provide a legend here that explains how we break down Google business categories into their individual entity components. And the reason for that is because I look at entity optimization as broad optimization, because, for example, a Google business category, when optimizing for a local campaign, a Google business category is a broad service category, right? And so there's a whole group of search queries that are associated with that category. So if we optimize for the category at the category level, the service category level, if you understand what I'm saying, then that page that we are optimizing to agree or associate with that Google business category is now relevant to be served in the search results for all of the search queries associated with that category, even if the phrase is not present on the page. You understand? That's the difference between keyword optimization and entity optimization, or the difference between the keyword-based algorithm and an entity-based algorithm. We used to have to hammer Google over the head with any sort of variant of a keyword that we wanted to rank for. We'd have to have basically either a separate page optimized for each variant, or we'd have to try to squeeze every single type of variant for the search query that we were actually optimizing for within the page, which would lead to 3,000 words on a page when it only needed 600 words to say what it had to say. All the stuff that we used to do is very, spammy optimization, because that's how we used to have to get results. But now, because language models are what are behind search, and not just in Google and search engines, but also language model search, right? So AI search, it's the language where we don't have to beat the algorithms over the head like that, because they understand much better our language. In other words, and because they're looking at the entire site holistically instead of at the page level, which is why redundancy and duplication is a problem that lowers the site quality score. And I see that all the time, because one of the old tactics that we used to do, besides what I just mentioned, which was to either have a separate page optimized for each search query variant that we wanted to rank for, or a single page that had tried to squeeze every sort of variant for that particular phrase into that page. In addition to that, what else do we typically see in local SEO? We usually see, multiple pages targeting each product or service that the company provides times each location or area, like neighborhood, city, town, et cetera, that they want to be exposed for in local search, which would create a ton of duplication and redundancies. It's unnecessary now, and it has been for years, to repeat the same thing over and over and over again. So, for example, let's say it's a tree trimming service, right? So, if a tree service company serves a service area where they're trying to target, let's say, 15 locations, cities or towns within a service area, then under older kind of tactics, we would see tree service times city, or tree care service times city for each of those 15 cities. So there'd be 15 pages talking about tree care service. So do you understand the redundancy and the duplication of that? There's no need for that. It's excessive and unnecessary, because only needs to have one page on the site that talks about tree care services, like how they're delivered, what are average costs, what the homeowner can, or the property owner can expect, what is the timeline for, and when should certain tree care services be applied at different times of the year, frequently asked questions, things like that. One page on the site should be fully optimized to thoroughly describe how that service is provided, what the customer can expect, etc. And that's it. And then for each location that the company wants to target, there should be one page for each location. And so let's say the company has multiple services: tree trimming, tree removal, stump grinding. Let's just use those three as an example. Under older SEO tactics, where it was keyword based, and we used to have to optimize for keyword times city for each keyword times each city. In the example I just described, if there was 15 locations for this hypothetical company, and they had three main primary services: tree trimming, tree removal, and stump grinding, okay? Then that would end up being, think about that, that would be 45 pages under the old tactics, because there'd be 15 pages saying tree removal times each city for 15 cities, tree trimming times city, and stump removal times city. So that'd be 45 pages, 15 pages each saying the exact same thing, the only thing that just reworded with different location modifiers. Now, do you think that's necessary in today's search environment with language models behind everything? The answer is no. What we should be doing is optimizing for the location pages, which is what will rank for local search queries, not the service pages. The service pages should be optimized thoroughly for the service, how it's delivered, what the customer can expect, frequently asked questions, average pricing, etc. All of that should be very thoroughly optimized, but it's not the service page that should rank for the search queries. If somebody searches for tree removal near me, or tree removal plus a city modifier, you want the location page, one location page targeted for each city or town within the area. You want one page to rank, or only one page on the site relevant to that query. So if that company provides tree trimming, tree removal, and stump grinding, then you want the one location page optimized for that city, that location, to rank for all of those queries. One page. So how do you do that? It's through internal linking, right? We create associations. Our jobs as SEOs is not to build links, or to push link equity, or hammer Google over the head, or the algorithms over the head with keywords. What our jobs are is to create associations, brand associations with the products or services that it provides in the locations or area in which it provides those services. And also to create associations within the website of the brand, the products or services that they provide, and the locations in which they provide them. So for example, and it says this in my audit documents, I talk about optimizing for Google business categories so that that's top, or entity-based optimization, so that we can improve Google Maps ranking performance. But then optimizing for topics, which are entities, but I just like to call them topics when we're optimizing for organic search performance, which influences AI search performance as well. So the point that I'm trying to make is we want to optimize for entities because now it's a lot more efficient. Remember, if you optimize for a entity, a Google business category, which is either an entity or a combination of multiple entities, we're optimizing at the entity level, which is a broader and more efficient way to optimize, because when a page is optimized for entities, all of the search queries associated with those entities, so the variants, the synonyms, etc., are already all relevant to that page, even if not explicitly referenced. So it's more efficient. You'll need less content. The page will be served or given impressions for a wider set of search queries. And then you create the associations between each product or service and each of the locations that that product or service is available through internal linking. And I talk about that here. You can see that for service pages, I always recommend product or service pages that you have an internal link element within the content body of the page that says, here are all the locations in which this service is available, right? And that creates an association between each of those locations. And those are internal links that link to the location pages. So you only need one service page to explain that product or service, but then you create the association with each of the locations it's available to through that internal linking element. The same thing on the other side of it is on each location page, you would insert a link element, internal link element, a table, whatever, inside the content body of the location page that says, at this location, all of these services are available. If you need more information about any one of these individual services, click through, and it takes into the one page that thoroughly describes it. Instead of the alternative, which is on each and every location page, you would have a separate, heading with a paragraph of text redescribing the service, and then on every location page you have to redescribe the service again. That's completely unnecessary. You just need a navigational element that says, this is the company, this is the location that that we operate in, and here's the services that we provide. If you need more information, just click, and it takes them to that one page that's optimized for that service or product. Hopefully that's clear. But the point that I'm trying to make is, with the on-page optimization, we want to keep the site efficient and lean. We don't want excessive redundancy or competing pages. We want it to be free of technical SEO errors as much as possible. We want it to not be over-optimized. It should be optimized for entities instead of keywords, which will help it to perform significantly better in search with less pages and less links. All right. And on top of that, obviously, there's the schema, which we talked about in the previous video. Entity analysis, we can influence organization, like overall brand schema through organization, or overall brand knowledge graph, through organization schema or one of the appropriate subtypes. But then we also can influence the branded business location authority or the local entity through local business schema. And so it's important to have the appropriate schema there that's thoroughly optimized and referencing the appropriate same as attributes to kind of help to develop that knowledge graph for Google and the other language models. Right. And then so the ID page, we talked about that as well. And there's a specific URL here that you can watch a video that explains more thoroughly what the ID page is also. But the most important thing that I'm trying to explain here is not to look at building websites with keyword optimization in mind anymore. We're not in a keyword world, and we haven't been for years. We should be optimizing for entities, and it's a much more efficient way to do it. We create associations. Our goal as SEOs is to create associations between the brand, the products or services it provides, and the locations or area in which it provides them. And we need to constantly be reinforcing that, both with off-page signals and on-page signals. And the way that we structure the site, or the architecture of the site with the internal linking, is how we create the associations between each of the products or services the company provides and each of the locations in which those are available. And so that's the much more efficient way. And I will be giving in the audit, specific to your campaign, I will be providing very specific recommendations for how to structure pages and internal links to achieve this sort of a site architecture, which will perform much better because it's more efficient. Okay, so this is Bradley Benner with Semantic Links, and we'll see you.